thank you for tuning in. My guests today are unique personalities. Ali, he is smart, witty, and perfectly sarcastic. And then we have Emre, who is my partner in crime. Can't do anything without him. It must be a generational. Welcome. Hi, Ali. Welcome to our In Touch segment of Myrina Nonprofits podcast. So you are on the other side of the pond. How is the UK after that heat wave, dude?
First of all, thank you for having me. I'm doing very well. Unfortunately, the weather has been a bit of a nightmare the last week. It went up to the high 30s, which is very uncommon for the UK and quite unbearable as well. But thankfully, we're back to normal weather, which is cold nights and slightly too warm days. So uncomfortable as always, you could say.
Yeah, the humidity gets you, doesn't it? I remember that. I remember that. Well, thank you for accepting being here. I really do appreciate it. So Emre, you're on the other side of the pond too. You're in Istanbul, Turkey. What about you guys? How was the weather there last week?
Um, we haven't been affected as much as the European countries and UK has been affected, but I mean it's pretty hot. I mean it's pretty much around the same temperatures Istanbul in these times of year, but today I think it was one of the hottest days of all. It was around 37 degrees Celsius. Yeah, and I'm not even adding the humidity, so go figure. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know. That must be horrible.
Yeah, it
So,
was.
Ali, I want both of you guys to tell me about yourselves a little bit. I'm going to give the first round to Ali. Tell me about yourself.
Well, as you said, my name's Ali. I grew up I was born in the UK. At the age of 8, I moved to Istanbul, and I grew up mostly there in an international school. So I grew up in a mix of an expat and international community as I went to school with people from all over the world. And so when I was going to university, I moved back here. When I moved back here, I realized just how unique my view on the world is, or rather, my upbringing was compared to my peers, people who grew up here,
Yeah.
typically.
Well, I know how that is because my dad was a diplomat and we traveled a lot also. And I grew up in the expat communities too. And it does give you a unique perspective in life. What about you, Emre?
Uh, well, except you guys, I pretty much spent majority of my life in Turkey, Istanbul specifically. Um, well, I'm 38 years old. I'm a therapist specialized in addiction, and I've been in recovery for the last 2 years. I'm married. I have a dog.
Hey,
We have a
hold
dog.
on, hold on, hold on. Hold on. Yes, that's all.
I appreciate it because I mean it's been like 2 weeks since my anniversary. It was tough, but here I am. Yeah, so
Very happy to have you too. So,
thank you for having me.
okay, back to you, Ali. Your angle is unique and often overlooked, usually when we talk about recovering from life and its connection to addictions. Would you like to tell a little bit about that?
Well, honestly, I don't feel it's that unique because I didn't really grow up in an environment where I questioned the way I grew up. So my dad, growing up, my father was basically a career expat. He would travel and work abroad. And so when I moved to Turkey, he was still working abroad. So for the most part, my father was absent from my life growing up, in my later childhood, I should say. And so you add onto that things like the 2008 market crash and financial problems. My childhood was tumultuous, you could say. My father also um, was an alcoholic, now a recovering alcoholic for, well, like 20 years, 17 years, something like that.
Yippee! Kudos to your father! Yay!
Um, Yeah, I don't know. I think that's yeah, and I guess in terms of um recovery from life, as you said, while I don't quite understand what that means exactly, uh I learned at quite an early age not to expect things of others, and I think that's helped me a lot in maturing as a person, as I've learned not to blame other people for my problems, not to blame the world for my problems, to accept responsibility for my actions and the consequences thereof. And so it's given me perspective on how I go about life, how I treat myself, how I treat the others around me. You know, you don't do nice deeds, or, well, my view that you shouldn't do nice things for people with the expectation that they return it. You do it because you want to. You know what I mean? And I've always been like that growing up. So I don't know. I think that's, I guess, what's unique about me in a sense, because the more older I get, the more I realize just how much people expect of others.
Yes, I understand that. And I grew up with an alcoholic parent too, and contrary to yours, mine never actually even contemplated getting into recovery. My mother, she was a horrible drunk, um, that we needed to like count how many glasses that she has so we don't stumble up into the characteristic that she develops after a certain amount that she drinks. And then before that, she's in withdrawal. So we had to take that into account about her and how to interact with her. So it was such a tiring process to be around her and her not accepting any kind of responsibility for her disease and not even contemplating getting into recovery. Um, it was always somebody else's fault. Always, right? I mean,
I can imagine that being really
oh,
difficult, having
yeah,
to, as a child, having to take some sort of emotional responsibility for your parents and learning how to manage their behaviors. Uh, it can really make you dysfunctional growing up. And I learned that as well. Ironically, not from my father, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, Emre, what about you? What about your parents?
Well, when I was growing up, I wasn't aware of that my family was that dysfunctional because I would see myself as one of the advantageous kids growing up. And when we are talking about addictions, I always thought that they are just alcohol drinkers in a social norm. Well, who knows? I mean, back then I didn't know the information that I do now. So, but my dad and mom was a pretty, maybe using good as an adjective over here is not like the a good fit, but they were pretty bad codependents and an adult child too. So my dad has an anger problem, and like living with all those dysfunctional, like being on that environment, being in that dysfunctional family, sometimes as a kid you just take some responsibilities that you shouldn't, like you guys mentioned before. And then while growing up, it wasn't just my family, like all the people around me was just telling all the stories about what should we do, or just coming for advice. So it took me a point that I was just we were just switching roles, you know. I was just being the parent instead of being the kid. And as we all know, it's not a healthy structure to grow into. And yeah, and my mom, I think she's working hard on this one, but she used to be eating her emotions. So she was a food addict and codependent and had adult childhood on top of it. So yeah, it was. I mean, when I was a kid, like I said, I wasn't thinking all about these. But when I turn back and just remember all those times, yeah.
Yeah, it's my dad was a codependent to my mother, and it was so hard seeing him cave to every little thing that she threw out there. You know. What about your mother, Ali?
My mother likewise, very bad codependent. I remember someone calling her one of the worst codependents she's seen before. Yeah, she was. It was ironically because my father was an addict. But he was not really a bad drunk at all. He was just mostly absent. He was there when in my early childhood, even though he was an addict. So he was present. He would just be all drinking all the time. Like my first memory is, uh, one of my earliest memories of my life is the smell of beer from a pint glass, traditional like British pint glass. Um, but my mother is the complete opposite. She's not an addict in any way. She, for her, it's a behavioral addiction, I suppose you could say. Compulsive behaviors, obsessive thinking, very OCD kind of behavior. I don't know if it would be classified as OCD, but so yeah, she was really like every time she was stressed, it felt a lot like she was taking that out on me. So as a child, rather, I learned two things: how to manage her in a sense, and to avoid her, but also how to fight verbally, because I was always arguing with her. I would refuse to give her any ground. I was the typical kid who, would go out, feel freezing. Your mum would say, wear a jacket. And you go, no, I'm fine. But in reality, I was freezing and I was dying just because I didn't want to, what's it called, give that ground to her. So yeah, I was very argumentative with her and she was very argumentative with me. And it was a bit of a nightmare in that sense. But likewise, she's doing a lot better nowadays, but I guess that's probably comes with the fact that I'm an adult now, and a lot of the things she's worried about have proven to be wrong in my life. I'm not an addict like my dad. I'm not an alcoholic. I smoke. That's about it, though.
Well, we are stubborn little creatures as people who grew up in dysfunctional families, and especially around other addicts or other types of addiction. We just either we cave in and we become someone that they can slap around constantly, or we try to be the best child ever, or we're the scapegoat and we just say, whoops, hold it, I'm not taking this bullshit anymore, kind of deal. So what was it like before your dad got into recovery? You said you can remember the smell of alcohol, but what else was there?
Problem is my memory's quite hazy, and because he was quite absent, I didn't notice too much. So it's difficult to say. Uh, he he really it didn't feel any different to me than any other father, to be honest. He didn't have anger issues. He wasn't particularly sensitive. He didn't flip out on me. He didn't even isolate himself from me when when he was present. So uh it wasn't until I went into therapy that I even thought about his alcoholism being having any effect on me at all.
I get it. I get it.
Um yeah, yeah. So
How about
I
your
don't
mom?
know. It's hard to say, to
Yeah.
be
How about
honest.
your mom? How did your mom get affected by his drinking?
Um, my parents hid a lot of those issues from me, so it was hard to know what's it called, the particulars. That being said, she was stressed beyond all belief. She grew up in an environment where she had to take responsibility for others, and my father just became another person on that pile. I was already there, obviously being a child at the time, and so yeah, she became a really bad codependent response, and would often, the more stressed she became, the more she put pressure on me and my behaviors, like my anxiety. She would, for example, she took issue with my anxiety and my unwillingness to be more social, for example. Um, yeah, luckily I did well in school, so that wasn't even an issue. She couldn't even help me with my work. But yeah, it was more that she took a lot of those stresses out on me, unfortunately.
No, I get that. I get that. What about you, Emre?
So when I was growing up, like till 6 years old, I think my mom was with me. My mom was there, and then afterwards, I mean, my dad was constantly working, and like after 6 years, my mom started working too. And I mean, the professions that they had was tough because there were no real working times, you know? Like it wasn't 9 to 6 or whatever. It was just constantly working and I was just living alone by myself, with a nanny, I would say. And it went like this till I am 16 or 17. But after around those ages, my mom had a depressive uh, part of her life in that around that time frame, and then so I was 16 or 17, and I was being free spirit is another thing, but I was just alone, and I was living like an independent adult when I wasn't, and so after around like 17 years old, your mom stays at home, don't goes outside or whatever. So at that point, you start thinking differently than you used to because she was coming home late at night because of the work. She had a restaurant, and so when you're in a business like that, there is no morning, there is no night, there is no time frame to work. But that was a switch. I mean, one day she was active and working all the time, but the other day it was just all the way around, and she was just at home constantly. And I like adapting to that. It wasn't an easy thing for me to do, and even though the situation and that time frame in my life, it was she being depressing, started wanting me to just control everything, you know, because I could have done everything that I wanted to till that age, but after then, your mom is at home, she's depressed, she's not going out, and you start to control everything to be able to continue the life that you used to live, you know. So it was a weird and hard transition for me, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. I get it. I guess I'm the only one that both my parents didn't acknowledge to get into any kind of recovery. And both of them are deceased now. And it was so unbearable for me that I left home when I was 16 and I was forced to grow up early on in my life. So I can understand that, being forced to grow up before you were ready for it, take on responsibilities and stuff. That is really, really tough. So, um, Ali, what do you think that made your dad want to get into recovery?
Staying alive, because he drank to the point where he almost had liver failure. So the choice was either he keeps drinking and risks death, or probably death, I should say, or he stops. And so when I was around the age of 10, he stopped drinking entirely. And looking back on it is funny because I didn't notice anything change. One day my dad's skin was yellow as a lemon or whatever you'd say, and the next he was fine again. So you know what I mean. It didn't really impact me per se, but for him it was a choice he had to make.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm glad that he made that choice. I mean, not everybody makes that choice, unfortunately. So, has things gotten better between you two or between your parents when he did this?
Um, I can't speak to the relationship of my parents because again I was a child, so uh, it's hard to say. That being said, um, it coincided with the family's financial problems, and so he became a lot more absent. Um, yeah, I don't know if that was a part of it was the addiction, because my dad is a very addictive person, so he just substitutes one addiction for another. For example, now it's uh lemonade, like Sprite, stuff like that. He drinks a lot of that. Um, yeah, yeah, but he drinks no, he drinks zero, but, all the same. He also poured himself into his work. That being said, I think a part of it was just pure financial motivation. Uh, and it probably helped my mum a bit um, at the time, but again, I'm not super confident because I don't know the inner workings too well. Um, Compared to now, though, my parents are both like me. They've matured a lot more, and my dad, I'm able to have a lot more of an adult relationship with my dad, if that makes sense. Uh, older I get, the more I realize I'm a lot like him in many ways. He's a surprisingly like thoughtful and mature person, all things considered. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's perfect, but it's gone a lot better for both my parents.
Yeah, and that is progress. That is wonderful. So, what is your take on codependency? Do you know the concept?
Um, I'm not a professional, so don't
I
take my
know.
word for it.
All
But
right.
I have an idea what codependency is. It's kind of when in a relationship two people play opposing roles where one of them is the caretaker and one of them is being cared for. In that case, my father was being cared for, my mother was the caretaker. Um, my mother, as I doubt she'll ever stop herself being a codependent. That being said, she's got it a lot more under control. And because, I grew up my whole life with her, I know when to shut it down. And to shut it down, I just have to argue relentlessly and shout at her until she stops badgering me and annoying me. And it works out. My dad, on the other hand, he's become a lot more independent. He's a lot more takes care of himself, he eats his own, makes his own food, cleans his own clothes, etc., etc. He doesn't rely too much on uh, other people like he did before. I mean, he even takes care of like the neighborhood cats and everything, which he's done for a very, very long time. So yeah,
Oh, yeah, that's brilliant. So, what about you? Do you think you're a codependent?
I definitely have those tendencies. Uh, but seeing, how do I say, seeing the two opposites of the scale kind of gives you perspective, I think, on you don't want to be too much like one parent or too much like the other. And so I've I noticed quite quickly in one of my relationships that uh I was becoming a codependent. I had really strong codependent tendencies, but I would say 8 or 9 times out of 10, I was able to cut it before I let it get out of control. So um I definitely have that within me because I grew up in a dysfunctional family, and your coping mechanisms turn you into a codependent almost always, right? Or give you those compulsions to behave in a certain codependent way. But I try to balance it as well as I can.
Yeah, well, I get that. I get that. Well, what about your adult child side?
Um, as I've gotten older, the more I realize, sorry, I should say, um, I've always been the invisible child. I always learned not to cause a commotion, not to make noise, don't cause trouble, because both my parents were in my late childhood. My parents were in a very stressful position. One of them was working 24/7 and was dealing with recovery, and another was also dealing with really bad financial problems, and was also really bad codependent, and went through a depressive episode and everything. So, yeah, I learned, much like Emre was talking about, I learned to take care of myself quite quickly. By the time I was like 12, 13, my mother no longer woke me up for school. I'd wake myself up. I'd make my own breakfast. I would wake her up every morning, in fact. And all my mother would do really was clean the house and cook for me. Outside of that, we didn't really share much together. And because my father was also absent, I kind of had to raise myself. And so I did well in school. I tried not to cause a commotion. And I mostly was able to skirt by until I finished school.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. I mean, both of you are kind of on the invisible child mascot realm. But I was the family hero till I was 14. I was trying to do everything perfectly, you know, pristine, perfect. Everything has to be perfect. I was so hungry for affection and love and acceptance, especially from my mom. Like I tried to please her in ways that it was extremely tiring. And every time I thought I reached that bar, she used to raise it, you know, in a way. And it felt like a slap in the face constantly. And then when I was 14, I went like, oh, fuck it. You know, I am going to go exactly the opposite, right? But by this time, I was her drinking buddy anyway. So most of our viewers might not know I've been in recovery for 30 years, and kudos to me, please.
Big milestone.
Thank you. But when I was 14, I realized that no matter what I do, there's no satisfying this woman, so fuck it. And I have become the best addict that I could be. The best rebel, the best addict, the best tomboy, everything that she hated, I was going to be the best at that. Even if it was going to kill me, I was going to do it that way. If that makes any sense, right? So, so one more question, guys. When you became like teenagers, what was the pressure coming from the codependent parent towards you?
I'll let Emre go first.
All right,
Yep,
Emre.
sure. So, I just want to take a little bit back to be able to just get the context. So, I started with Invisible Child. I've been a mascot. I've tried pretty much everything. And the majority of my life, I was a scapegoat because my motto was my way or highway. So, when you, and especially on those teenagers that we are going to talk about, I was a scapegoat. And those years, I think they were at a point that they were, even though they weren't okay with it, they was just letting it slide because they were afraid of losing their child. Because at that time, all my abusing has started, and I've started with alcohol. And around 17 years old, I lost my best friend because of cancer. So it was the thing that switched all my behavior against everything. And at that point, I was 17. I was almost being able to drink alcohol legally, and I started abusing alcohol. And when we turn back to the question about the thing that you told us, what was the expectations? I think at that point there were none. I'm gonna be honest, because I wasn't caring about my education. I was sabotaging myself when it comes to education, because I mean, we are talking all about codependency, adult childhood, but I was just punishing them because they were absent. Because, I mean, at some point, my mom, not at some point, I think my mom was always present in my life, but my dad wasn't around. And this was the way of me punishing them by sabotaging myself, my education, abusing alcohol, just that stuff. And so, if you are talking about expectations, I think their only expectation was me being alive, I would say.
I get that. What about you, Ali?
I grew up being told that I was gifted. If you've heard of the term gifted child, I was one of those. When I was in year 3, I was doing maths that was a year ahead of me, all that stuff. And so there was that. And then added on to that, when I was really little, I really idolized my dad. I wanted to be a lot like him. And so my father wasn't, he's done everything under the sun, much like me. He's a very intelligent man. He's done everything from engineering to finance. And so I thought, as a teenager, at some point, I don't know when, my expectations became what other people expected of me. I guess I played this role of this intelligent, smart kid who likes maths and might become an engineer. That I really thought, well, that must be what I need to do, right? So I didn't put my head down and work per se, but I was able to get just by school by putting in as little effort as I could get away with. And I didn't really feel that until I was feel the effect of that until I was 16 and work actually starts to get difficult. But when I got to around that age, around 16, um, I completely stopped. I let go of any expectations my parents had of me. I didn't think about what my parents want me to do, anything like this. I only really thought about it as what should I do for myself? Like what is the best path for me? That being said, if we're talking about uh, the pressure they put on me, my mom, like every Turkish mom I imagine that I've seen on social media at least,
Yeah.
uh, an insult well, not an insult, but a fear she constantly had said was, "You're just like your father."
Yeah.
She was always, when I was 16, I started going out to parties. I was a bit more social. I was still like very anxious kid, right? But I was going out to parties, I was drinking, whatever. And so she was like scared that I would become an alcoholic, an addict. I remember even there was one time there was this picture of a kid she saw in a cafe smoking a cigarette. And she was genuinely convinced it was me. And she wouldn't let it go. She's like, "Why are you smoking? There's pictures of you smoking." She wouldn't let it go. And I was like, "I'm not smoking. You know, this isn't me. I'm not smoking." I was smoking, but that wasn't me anyway. Besides the point.
I get it.
So yeah, I did experiment with stuff and I took stuff, and I did abuse substances, but I never really became an addict. I think my anxiety was so strong that it actually prevented me from becoming one. I was so scared of hurting people around me, my parents in particular, uh, and the consequences of my actions that I just never committed to addiction fully. So, um, yeah, so when my parents did put pressure on me later on in my teenage years about what to do with my life, I felt quite defensive about it because I thought to myself, well, you weren't around, you weren't there supporting me, helping in my schoolwork, etc. You're not helping me with this. I'm doing this all on my own. So why should I follow your expectations, right? Um, so it caused a bit of friction. But yeah, I think that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. It does perfectly. Perfectly. Yeah. I think when you're one of those very unique personalities that didn't flip the switch and just activated what's embedded in us. Like I flipped the switch when I was in my teens. Emre flipped the switch when he was in his teens. But you had this ability to go out, experiment, and say, no, I'm not going to do this. And that actually does put you in a very, very unique spot. And
Exactly.
yeah, congratulations. That is not very easy. And I'm going to give you the hands up. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't see it that way because, again, it was just fear. I didn't want to take the risk of drinking in the house under my parents' nose. I was too scared of social situations to go out and to initiate drinking and stuff with my friends. I was too scared to talk to a drug dealer, to ask for contacts, anything like that. You know what I mean? So for me, it was actually just, like I said, it was negative enforcements that actually stopped me from becoming an addict. So I don't see it as much of an achievement because it didn't take much strength in my book. It just, I folded to the pressure around me. I see it as.
I should you do, because kudos to you. I mean,
Thank you.
Yeah, that's quite unique. I get it. So, what about your relationship as a young adult with your parents today? How is life like?
is it to Ali or me?
It's to Ali.
I'm
sorry.
I have a pretty good relationship with my parents now. We talk about a lot of stuff, about their views on life and the world, and I try and spend more time with them, although I probably don't as much as I should, and I do regret that. But yeah, as I've matured, it's been a lot. I've been able to relate to them a lot more on a personal level, on an adult level, and to have a much more mature relationship. It's not perfect. I'm still their kid. But yeah, I've been able to, how should I say, have mature conversations with them. I talk to my dad mostly about the news and what's going on in life and, the world and bigger stuff. And with my mom about like the meaning of life and whatever. Like I'm sure a lot of people do. So yeah, I have a pretty decent, I have a good relationship with my parents, I'd say,
Yeah,
despite
but
everything.
not everybody, when they become young adults, have those quality conversations with their parents. So that's also unique, because when I got into recovery, I also had unique um, this unique connection with my father, and we talked a lot about everything about life except what happened to me and why did I become what I became, etc., etc. And of course, mom's drinking. Those were the no-nos. But after she passed away, I I took the courage to be able to tell her what I really thought about her. And
You,
he didn't want to
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but do you mean talking to your dad about her?
talking to my dad
Okay.
about and how that really hurt me, right? And the only thing that he acknowledged is said that I shouldn't have let you leave home when you were 60. That's what he said. He regretted that. But when it came to how sick she was, what a narcissist borderline she was, and what a horrible drunk she was, he didn't want to acknowledge all of that. That was very painful because he was such an intelligent and smart man. If he did acknowledge that, then even he was going to beat himself up for not doing anything about it, right? And he didn't go there. But my uncle was there, my mother's brother and my mother's sister was there after her funeral. And I just said it out loud. I said she was a horrible, narcissistic, borderline drunk. it came out like this. And he said, "Don't talk about your mother that way," right? And I was like, "Why not? This is the truth." And then my uncle jumped in and said, "Please listen to her. We know what my sister was." And then my aunt jumped in and said, "She was a self-centered narcissist, just like her father, who was a gambling addict that had anger issues."
Mm.
So there you go. It was all that generational stuff. And then he just backed off. And then probably after Sylvia passed away, my relationship with my dad, the last 5 years of his life, was the best quality time that we had together, living under the same roof. And I became pregnant, and we all were pregnant. My husband, my dad was pregnant. We went to birth. We all went to birth. We were going to do something about the little one. We all did it. We were going to go to a holiday together. We all did it. So it maybe the first time in my life I actually felt like a family, you know, that I belonged somewhere, really. And I would um, never change that for anything, you know? So, what about you, Emre? How about you now?
Um, well, for me now, I have a healthier, I would say, relationship with my mom. It's getting way better every day, and fortunately, we are both trying to make it better, you know? It's not just a one-side thing, so I'm kind of lucky on that sense. But, I have never had a chance to be able to do the same thing with my dad. We never had a I'm not talking even healthy relationship. I think we never had a proper relationship with my dad. And I think the only time that I had a quality conversation with my dad was 4 days before he passing away. And so he passed away around like 3 years ago. Actually, it's gonna be 4 years in a month and a half. And so I didn't have that chance with my dad. But if you're talking about with my mom, I feel pretty lucky to be able to have this kind of relationship with her because, like Ali said before, we were constantly arguing with my mom. It was just bouncing off of each other because my dad was absent, and the only thing that we can lash out to was each other, you know. And we were just, but we wasn't aware of we were hurting each other. So, but now, like my mom had a minor operation yesterday, and I've been staying at her house for like 2 days, 3 days, and normally I'm not talking even about days, I'm talking about hours. There wasn't a single hour without we arguing or fighting. But that 3 days staying together and having healthy conversation, decent conversation was, yeah, I like having this kind of relationship with my mom with all of things that just happened in our both lives, you know?
Yeah, it does bring a different kind of quality, you know.
Yeah.
That's actually very, very precious. So, um, what about your friends? Both of you, do you have any friends that are addicts?
I'll start, I guess. I think I have one friend who is not an addict.
That's good.
I think most of my friends are addicts. I think I'm an addict in many ways as well, depending on your definition, right? Because I smoke, right? Doesn't that make me an addict in some way? It does, right? It's a sliding scale, in other words. So the older I get, the more I realize we all have very addictive behaviors. And for most people, that addictive behavior is taking a certain substance, drinking, smoking weed, call it what you will. So yeah, I have a lot of friends with addiction issues. My best friend is an addict. I don't think you'd mind me saying. And yeah, he's taking. He might not be in recovery yet, but he at least acknowledges it, right? That's the part that's important to me, right? Is honesty. If you're honest with yourself and can be honest with others about who you are, then I will not hold it against you because you're being authentic, right? You're being yourself, and any behaviors you have that fit within the definition of an addict that harm me, it becomes my responsibility because it's my responsibility to engage with you in that context. So yeah, I think all of my friends are addicts in some way or another, most of them at least. Yeah. Luckily, I don't think I really play much a codependent role though in that relationship.
That's actually a very healthy attitude. I mean, my best friend, excuse me, when I was doing all sorts of crazy stuff, my best friend was the sober one. He was like, I'm never going to do the bullshit that you're doing, kind of deal. And then I got into recovery, and he's a late bloomer. He became an addict. And about 3 years ago, he decided in his mid 50s that he was going to stop. And I'm like, dude, what the, you know? And now we share recovery together, and it's really, I don't know, it's really funny because I always tease him. I say, did I have to wait 27 years for you to get into recovery? Why the hell did you do this? Like, delay this. But yeah, I think we tend to be drawn to people just like ourselves. What about you, Emre?
Well, I mean, like I said, there's two sections in my recovery. The first one, that I would describe as early recovery, is what was harm reduction, because my main substance was just cannabis, and they took cannabis out of my hand and just gave alcohol, which didn't help, by the way. And so like till, I don't know, maybe 3 years, 4 years ago, my whole friends were addicts. But then I had to do, like, getting into total abstinence, I had to make that cleaning when it comes to friendship department, And with that cleaning, I would say I only have 2 friends, and my best friend is also in recovery for a year now. So, I'm sorry, not a year, a year and a half, because if she hears this and sees me say a year, she will kick my butt, perhaps. So yeah, and right now I think I know what my past is, and I'm trying to be more I'm trying to be healthier in my decisions when I'm making friends,
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we're like magnets to people with addictions, mental health problems. We attract them in a way, because we're so good at like enabling them. Even if we choose not to enable them anymore, we are so good at, justifying and, just being caretakers, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, people with problems just spot us and say, "Oh,
exactly.
yeah, there it is. Let me suck that person dry. There you go." So,
And especially, I'm sorry to cut you off, but especially on that earlier stages of recovery, we do like come up with a bunch of different excuses to be able to stay with those friends, let's say.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get it. I get it. So we've learned what not to be as parents from our parents. I mean, I'm a
Mhm.
parent, and I became a parent very late in life, very late in my recovery also. I mean, I've been in for 30 plus years in recovery now. My son is 16. So when I was like 15 years sober and clean, I took the courage to become a parent, because the only thing I knew about what parenting was, that was what not to do, right? And so it was a hard decision for me. So do you guys see yourselves becoming parents in the future in any way?
Can I jump in?
Go
No.
on.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Jump in, dude. Come on. Go on.
Okay, so I've been married for the last 2 years, and I mean, we met when I was an active addict, and like giving that control to my current wife was not that easy for me. And now we are currently, like you said before, like at the beginning of this podcast, I'm currently living in Istanbul, but we are planning to move abroad. So one of the reasons that we want to move abroad is just to raise a child in Europe, I would say. But if you ask me, are you willing to be a dad? Oh, yeah, I am. I want to raise a kid, but if you ask me, are you ready for it? Hell no, I'm not.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm not. I'm
No,
not.
I get it. I think you know what? I think we never will be ready to take that step. You know, when I think about myself, I had to take the step because my doctor told me it's now or never. So,
I agree. I've heard it on a panel. I can't remember it who was talking. But so someone from audience just raise her hand and just ask a question. I'm really afraid to have a kid. I'm this much years old, and I don't know what am I going to do. I mean, I'm going to therapy, and I'm trying to try to understand the things that I've done before, or I'm trying to focus on my personal growth. So, and she stated all of this, and then turned back to the talker and said, "What do you want? What do you suggest for me to be a good mother?" And the person that was doing the panel said, "You already done what you need to do because you are trying to change. You are trying to do things different. That's the starting point. Don't worry about the rest." Yeah, but still, does it make any like does it change the fact that it's scary? No.
no, I get it. What about you, Ali? Do you want to become a parent?
Well, I'm only 26, so I'm not even, it's not in my periphery, you know. But yeah, one day I would like to have children. I think I'd really enjoy being a teacher to my kids. And that's kind
Yeah.
of what you are as a parent in many ways, right? A teacher. Uh, that being said, no, I do not want to be a dad right now.
No,
One
I
day I
get
would
it.
like to be.
I get
but
it.
no.
Reasonable.
Yeah, I want to get a dog first, and then go from there, right? Have a stable income, have a dog, have a house, blah blah blah. So like I said, it's not in my periphery, but I would like to be one day for sure. Yeah. And I was going to say, I was thinking exactly what Emre said about the audience member is like 90% of the problem, or 90% of the work with most problems in almost any aspect of life is recognizing what the problem is. Right? So once you go, I need to be a good parent, that's most of the work done, because you just need to say, you need to accept reality. You need to accept yourself for and the situation for what it is, and then go from there. Right. So you're never gonna know if you're a good parent. It's just the truth,
Oh,
right? You'll never know. It's like, you'll never know perfection in a sense. You can only know in retrospect after it's happened. So I think the best thing you can do is take it a step at a time, one decision at a time, right? Say, this is the best decision now, I think, try and make the best of what you have and then go from there. And if your child has issues, then, that's life. She did the best she could, right? That's why I don't hold too much against my parents, is I know they did the best they could with what they had, even emotionally. Uh, so yeah, I don't hold resentment against my parents, and I think the best you can do is just try your best.
no, true, true. I mean, ah, being a parent to me, um, I promised myself that I was always going to be honoring my child's individuality, right? And that was always the case, even when he was like 2 years old or 3 years old, right? There were things that needed to happen. You can't give the initiative to a toddler, but you can give him choices to choose from the healthy things, right? And you can build on that individuality and always be honest and appropriate about your feelings towards everything that is going on, right? And don't treat them like they're nobody or they don't have an idea or, that their point of view doesn't count, because that's the worst thing that you can do to a person. I mean, that's what we've been through in our dysfunctional families because we didn't count. Everything revolves around our parents' dysfunctionality, right? And I think the key for me to be a healthy parent was that. And I still screw up, you know, and I catch myself screwing up and I apologize, right? And I try to talk about it. And the part that actually that that was so wonderful to experience was one of my family elders passed away, which I was really close about a couple of weeks ago, and no, I was a real mess, and emotionally. And when when my child heard what happened, he came and hugged me, and just hugged me. That's it. He didn't say anything. He just hugged me, held me, and hugged me, and I just cried my eyeballs out, you know. And it was just like this thing that he was hugging me, and that was it, not telling me what to do, how to feel, what was going on, nothing like that, And I felt so grateful that I was able to raise a human being or help him become that human being in life that was so mindful about what life can throw at you, right? And yeah, it was one of those magical moments. And I do believe that you guys, when you choose to become parents, that would be fantastic parents because we know what not to do.
I mean, I appreciate it for myself, but also I remember, like you told me something once, and it was something along the lines with, um, no kid comes up with introductions, not with a handbook. You just go with it and you just experience it together and try to uh, solve all the problems that comes up on that day, on that specific time. And if you can't, you just deal with it. So yeah, I think that's a valuable lesson for me when I remember that fear of having a kid or being a unhealthy or dysfunctional father figure, And yeah, that's where I go to when I feel like that.
Yeah. For women to become a parent, to become a mother, it's ingrained in us. It's our core purpose in our instinctive behaviors, right? But for men, it's you guys are the seed spreaders, right? So it's in your instinctiveness to do that. Okay, so it becomes a very crucial point to ask men that do you want to have a child or do you want to raise a child? Yeah, and that is very different, you know.
I was going to say, I think it's more complex than that as well, though, because if you want to make an evolutionary argument, right, we evolved from monkeys and we're very social animals. We grow up in big groups, big communities, kind of a communal environment. And a lot of that is dealing with children, right? So I think it is also in a man's nature, perhaps much less so than a woman, to raise children as well, just not to the same degree.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you. I mean, I was just talking on the instinctive level without the human being's mental capacities, right?
Mm.
So, but yeah, I mean, it is such a complex dynamic, all of this. But when we actually think about it in a simplistic way, it's the core of life, you know, to pass what you have to the coming generations, you know, that is embedded in us. It's one of those things. So, um, yeah, I am really grateful that both of you were very, very honest and, you know, you guys just laid it out there. So let me ask you one question. When it comes to mental health and addictions, do you think the world is doing enough to tackle these issues?
I'm less of an authority, so maybe I should go first.
Please do. Yeah.
It's addiction is seen differently in different parts of the world. Firstly, the big issue in the UK, in terms of addiction, is the normalization of alcohol use. Right? It's legal to drink from the age of 16 here.
Yeah.
More or less. There are laws around it. It's 18 to buy, but you can drink at 16. So, drinking culture is very much normalized here. Going to the pub and whatnot. So there is a big normalization of drinking culture and to a lesser degree drug culture as well in the UK. So culturally it's not addressed that much. There's also the government aspect of like public education and that stuff. It's, you know, our institutions here are not very well off and they don't function very well. So it's probably not addressed as much as it should be. That being said, it's probably addressed a lot more than a lot of other places in the world.
True. 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 What about you, Emre? What do you think?
Well, I think a lot of things about this one.
Don't think as a therapist. Just think as a recovering person.
Well, I've been in this system as a patient, you know, as a client or a patient, or just however you want to call it. And like I said before, I'm 38, and I've been in therapy for the last 22 years, so I have more years in therapy than I have that I don't, you know? And I'm not going to go into too much details because this is, I'm not gonna say this angers me. I will say it really saddens me, you know? And so I don't really want to go into too much details, but I would like to say prevention and educating cultures. I mean, let's say it like this, okay? Bear with me, please. I know I talk too much. I'm sorry, but this is a topic that I care too much. So I just want to phrase it correctly. So if we are going with more interventive style, or like I said, let's take cannabis out and give something else, or not give something else, or let's not take that out too. So it gets to a point that it's just rolling around. It's a loop, but it doesn't end. So I think our best bet globally is to just educate everyone depending on their culture that they live in or grow in, and try to educate them from early age is our best bet. Will we ever gonna see this? I really hope so.
Yeah, I know.
But I will just finish it here. I don't want to go too far.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, you live in a Muslim country, so drinking alcohol is shunned in a way, right?
I mean, yes, yes, Turkey's majority is Muslim, but especially in Istanbul. I mean, I wouldn't only say Istanbul, but probably majority of Turkey. So I'm just gonna explain this with giving an example out of personal experience. Like 10 years ago, if someone would tell me, any of my friends would tell me to, hey, let's go and grab a coffee, and I would find it weird because I wasn't even imagining that that would be a possibility, you know? It was just sitting. I mean, we have different kind of things like kebab, fish, and rakı, etc. So I didn't know any way to socialize rather than going and drinking alcohol, you know? I mean, yes, our majority is Muslim, but also, unfortunately, there's this side of this spectrum as well.
Yeah. So, from your personal perspective, what do you guys think that needs to be added to what's there to help people make healthy choices for themselves or to get the health that they need earlier on? What do you think that needs to be added to the status quo that is already there?
For me, I would say education. It's just that simple. You just got to teach kids when they're in school about what addiction is, how it affects you, and give them pathway or resources that can lead them to recovery when they seek it, right? Because you can take alcohol away from them, you can take this substance away from them, that substance away from them, and it might help to a degree. But it's not completely it's not preventative. It's intervention, right? So that's one thing. For most places in the world, I would guess funding also is probably a big part of it. Just more funding for these kind of programs for education, for what's it called, for recovery, more programs for recovery, more intervention for recovery as well. I think got to stop treating addiction as a crime in a way, especially when it comes to drugs. Drug addiction, I think, is treated differently to alcohol addiction. Alcohol addiction is a lot more normalized. So I think that's one big reason too. You have to recognize the chemical dependency a lot of drugs cause as well, right? Like someone who's been drinking like can I swear? A lot of alcohol, let's
Sure.
say.
Yeah.
They have to take substance, they have to take like Valium and stuff when they stop drinking because the body is like used to drink like that level of alcohol, and it's like that for a lot of other drugs, right? So just giving people routes for recovery and the destigmatization of addiction, you uh and educating them, giving them the resources to find that path, I think are the three things that are really, really important. Yeah, that's what I would say, at least.
What about young people who grow up in addictive and dysfunctional families? What could be done for them? Because they, like we all did, feel like they're living on an island and they're the only ones behind closed doors. They believe that that's the only thing that they're living and they're unique, which they're not. There are millions of them out there, right? So, what do you think needs to happen with them?
I think it all goes back to education. I think you just got to teach, you've got to give children the resources, maybe not children, but teenagers, let's say, the resources to understand and contextualize these issues. So teaching kids about adult child syndrome, about codependency, even if it's just the basics, it can go a long
Exactly.
way, because
Exactly.
it can help them realize, like, oh, I fit this category perfectly, right? And growing up for me, it wasn't too much of an issue for me, but I think it can be for a lot of people to recognize that they uh they aren't like their experiences aren't completely unique, and that a lot of people have gone through similar stuff like themselves. I mean, if you just listen to this, me
Yeah,
and Emre had a very similar upbringing, it seems,
Mhm.
of mostly absent, emotionally absent fathers, at least, and very codependent mothers who took a lot of their frustrations out on their kids, right? Um, so yeah, it's just being honest with the people around you, having like a better safety net, understand a closer relationship, more honest, open relationship with the people around you. That helps a lot too, right? Understanding that even people with different experiences to your own oftentimes are very, very similar to your own, right?
exactly.
As
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree 100%. And there are resources out there for kids that grow up with an addicted parent. There are self-help groups that they could even go online and be part of their peers and talk about their unique problems. Um, and I mean, there's a lot of material out there, which at the end of this segment, we are going to name some of them, and we will put the websites of this to young people where they can access, you know, information or even self-help groups. And but I think we're not doing enough to recognize, especially preteen and teen, why a child is lashing out, you know. We just
Or not.
or not lashing out. Yeah. Yeah. No,
Because that was it for me, right? I was
yeah,
quiet. I stood in the back. That's
yeah,
another thing, is like when children are very mild man, is a lot of children learn how to hide it as well, mask their
yep,
problems.
yep, yep. And I think it's really important for teachers to learn about these things too, because if they learn about this, school counselors, teachers, they can catch what's going on, and maybe
Exactly.
they can lend a hand to understanding what's going on and maybe prevent tragedies from happening, right? I mean,
Uh,
how many kids around the world are living with a chemically addict parent? When we think about it, um, the kids are the parent to their parents, and they try to balance and juggle everything, and that just makes them grow up faster than what it has to be, and then they become miserable young adults, right? Because they're burnt out, they're all mixed up. And I think there's a lot to be done on this avenue. also, especially preventing and then early intervention into a young person's life could actually prevent them from becoming an addict themselves. What do you say, Emre?
Well, I 100% agree with both of you, but I mean, the first thing that we need to focus on is education, and education, no matter what. But I think that focusing, like you said before, like a couple of seconds earlier, we shouldn't be focusing on just some certain age group, you know, when we are trying to educate people. We need to be able to reach as much people as we can in different cultures, in different countries, in different parts of the world, uh, and I'm going to be honest, we are pretty much trying the same thing, same system, same wheels. It's the same thing going over and over again for so be time.
So
Exactly.
fucking
Long time.
long.
Okay.
Say it. Say
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah. Yeah. For so fucking long time.
yeah. Yeah.
We need to search to find different approaches because there are. We just don't. Yeah. We just don't want to choose them. We just don't want to implement that to our systems.
Because we don't want change, because change brings chaos.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
the quo is, how do you say, it's there, it's convenient. Everybody's used to it.
Exactly.
So right?
And every addict can have a part in society in some way, you know.
Of course.
I mean,
course.
we are a little group that we project because in some sense we all come from that part of people in society, you know, little, big or medium, it doesn't matter. But this is an example that addicts are not, I'm gonna be bold, I'm sorry, but that they are not lost cause and there is hope for everyone. You just need to see it if you want to, you know?
Of course. You were going to say something, Ali. What were you going to say?
Was I? I wasn't going to say anything.
It looked like you were going to say something. All right. Anyway, so I believe that we did make a difference today by talking about an issue that is not talked about, right? And I am so grateful for both of you to be here. And I am so grateful to have your point of views and to share those point of views with people. And if we can actually reach out to one person with this conversation, you know, it would be fantastic. Because that one person, when they change their trajectory in life, can affect more people, right? And we all know that. And if in an ideal world, of course, we would love for the systems to be helping people and getting people to a better place, right? But unfortunately, we don't live in an ideal system. There's no picture perfect, you know. But if everybody just thought for a minute, truly thought about it, when it comes to a scope of addictions that we're talking about, it's not only substance abuse, it's not only gambling, it's not only sex addiction, it's not only ABCDs. There's so many facades to the disease that people use to heal themselves because there's no other alternative, you know. If they actually stop and think, the stigma doesn't need to be there. And everybody can change if they're willing to change, no matter how bad things were. at some point in their lives. They just have to find the right help and the right people to walk with them through that.
Yeah, I think that's a massive thing that is also overlooked by what a lot of people say, is a good safety net can go miles. If you keep good people around you, they'll help you and they'll be there for you and they'll support you in your recovery and what you need, right? So I would say to any addict who's out there, if you got someone like that in your life, make sure they stay in your life, even if you're not quitting, right? Because one day that person's going to be there for you and you'll thank yourself that you let this person stay in your life, right?
Yep. Yep. Well, I'm so grateful that we had this conversation, and we will see you next time on In Touch with Our Feelings, building bridges between communities, between different cultures, and between different people on different topics. Thank you for coming. And yeah, you were going to say something again.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't figured it out already, I have ADHD and I can't stand still. But I would like to say something to be able to reach as much people as possible. I mean, I give my permission to just post it, share it, do whatever you want with this. So, I mean, you said one, I said let's make it two.
Yep. Let's spread the word. If we
Exactly.
don't do it, nobody will do it for us, right?
Hmm.
So thank you very much for coming. Thank you, Ali.
Thank
I know
you.
it's late in the UK. Thank you, Emre. I know it's later in Istanbul.
Yeah.
I appreciate you both very much. Until the next time. Okay, guys. I have to ask this by law. Ali, do you give your permission for us to be able to put this online and share it with the public?
You have my permission.
Thank you very much. How about you, Emre? Do I have your permission?
You definitely have my permission. You can just share it wherever you want.
Okay, thank you, guys. And the first people I will share it with will be you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.